What are the 3 big problems that 3D printing can solve for your practice? Hey, I'm Dr. Chris Griffin, founder of the 3D Printing Association for Dentists, and this is the video series that shows you the benefits that 3D printing can bring into your practice to promote that practice growth. Hello and welcome back. Hey, before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you can continue receiving these videos, and give a thumbs up to us so other dentists can find this channel to help make their practice better too. Okay? So what are the 3 big problems that 3D printing can solve for your practice? Okay? Well, number 1, the thing that comes to mind the most is high lab costs. So that's always a problem, right? Lab costs have only gone up. Right now, as it stands in late 2022, inflation is at an all-time high, and lab costs are no different. Lab costs, at least if you're like me, you feel like your lab costs are going through the roof and the quality is not going through the roof. It's either staying level or maybe even going down, okay? So when you get a 3D printer in your practice, you're going to be able to eliminate so many costs that currently you've got, okay? One of the biggest costs we've eliminated in our practice from the lab bills, well, dentures for sure. We do a ton of our dentures now 3D printed, so we're saving a few $100s every time we 3D print a denture. It only costs about $10 to 3D print an arch of dentures. So you can imagine how big of a savings that is. We'll say, okay, Chris, you know, that's not that big. Well, what else can you save a big lab bill on? Well, good grief, clear aligners. I don't know if you're a big clear aligner user, and hey, look, I was too. I was one of the very first people in America certified with Invisalign back when they started. I was one of the first early adopters of ClearCorrect, and those are great companies. They have a great product. But where I practice in rural America, honestly, they priced me out of the situation, because before I stopped using Invisalign and ClearCorrect, my lab bills were routinely over $1,500 per case, around $1,800 per case, in fact. And I did a very difficult case. One time it was over $2,000. So it's just, you know, those are great products, but if you want to cut costs, we now 3D print the models in stages that we make our clear aligners on in my practice, and the total cost overhead for clear aligners in my practice now is between $100 and $300 per case, okay? And all it took was a little bit of education on our end. We just had to study some things and learn how to do it, and sure enough, now we do great cases, we get great results with great final products, great post-op pictures, and it's all for $100 to $300 per case. I mean, you cannot beat that. So our lab fees, you know, as a practice who routinely would have 7.5% overhead associated with external lab costs, we're down to about 50% of that. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, loss of control over your case length, just the lag time that we encountered as our not only lab costs got higher, but the time it took from the time we took the impression or made a digital scan to when we actually got either a final product back or an interim product, if it was a multi-stage case, it just got ridiculous for us. We couldn't control it. And you know, when you can't control the case time, it just makes everyone unhappy. It makes the patient unhappy. The patient may very well at some point start to regret that they decided to do this at all. And you know, it's just very frustrating as the dentist. We had multiple times in the past year when we would have, say, a crown, just a simple crown. We'd send off for a crown and come back, sure enough, the patient comes in and the crown's not there. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It shouldn't happen to us. We should have systems in place that didn't allow that to occur, but it did occur. Same thing for partials. Can you imagine? I already hate doing partials anyway, right? Partials and dentures, the patient comes in, sure enough, the case isn't there. Are you kidding me? And you know, the patient's mad, the staff's frustrated, I'm mad, but you're kind of afraid to fuss at the staff because these days, who knows? It's kind of hard to find staff, right? So you're in a predicament. 3D printing solves a lot of that because you're going to start doing so much of your dentistry in-house that you just won't have that problem. Internally, you just won't have that problem. So that's a big problem that we solve. Now, before we get to the third thing, just real quick, let me share with you guys something we've got for you. So if you'll go to our website for the 3D Printing Dental Association, our website is www.3dpa.org. We've got some free checklists. These checklists are checklists of the top 3 procedures that we do every day in our practice. We've got checklists for immediate dentures, for clear aligners, and surgical guides, implant surgical guides. So if you grab these checklists, you'll see step by step exactly how we do these things in our practice. And also, we've got a QR code on these things you can scan. And you also, when you sign up for these checklists, you will get access to videos, walkthrough videos where I've done an actual step-by-step walkthrough telling you guys how we use exactly these checklists in our practice. And for example, you know, on the checklist it's kind of generic because I don't know what kind of stuff you guys have, your scanner models and all that, but I tell you what we do, the products we use, the materials we use and all that. So the checklist and the videos, those are absolutely free, and I think it's 100% worth it for you just to take the time to go to the website, grab those, and if you're interested in 3D printing, hey, you can never get enough information, right? So grab those, we got them for you. Now the third thing, what's the third big problem in dentistry that 3D printing can solve? So I think the big thing is buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse will happen, let's say when a person's in hygiene and you say, hey, would you like to straighten your teeth? And they say, sure. And let's say, hey, we can do some clear aligners. And if they say something like, yeah, how much is it? You sort of agree on a price. If it takes 2 weeks or a month to get the case started because you're having to use an external lab, you know, it's what I call the butterfly effect. You know, there's an old story like a butterfly flaps its wings off the coast of Africa and the Galapagos Islands. The next thing you know, there's a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. It's the same thing. The patient may be really excited to get their teeth straight when they leave your office. As soon as they leave the door, if they haven't started treatment, things start to happen. You know, the kids may be sick. The job may have changed. Work's really busy. The spouse has decided, hey, we need to spend that money on something else, okay? So if any of that stuff happens, the patient has a really good chance not to even come back and continue with their care that you've already decided to do, that they were at one time excited about. So when you can start the case today or really, really quick, which you can almost always do with 3D printing, it just cuts a lot of that away. So your case acceptance percentage is going to go way up, and guess what? You're also going to do more and more big cases. It's just a huge big case acceptance booster to do 3D printing in your practice. So that's another big problem that's going to be solved. And you know, once you solve that, if you solve those 3 problems, gosh, you've cut your overhead and you've increased your production and collections. I mean, what else is there? You know, if you're running a successful practice, that's like, that's the triple threat. So I want you guys to understand just exactly what the 3D printing can do for your practice, the problems it can solve. And if you get into this, I want you to be very successful. So grab the checklist and we'll be here to help you any way that we can. Once again, hey, subscribe to the channel so you can keep getting these videos, and we'll see you guys next time.